Hello there, it's Con Murphy here. Across the next few weeks, Balls.ie are delighted to bring you UCL Memories, brought to you in association with Live Score. Now, across 4 episodes, we'll look back at some iconic moments from the Champions League with the help of the players and coaches that helped make them. Today we're joined by the Celtic legends, Neil Lennon and Chris Sutton, to discuss some of the great European adventures that they had whilst in the colours of Glasgow Celtic, those famous green and white hoops. The one thing I'm thinking, lads, is we're going back here virtually 2 decades, really. I mean, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. It's a long time ago. I don't know at this point how much you remember of those campaigns, but I suppose we'll get into that in a minute, and hopefully you do remember some of it anyway. But maybe before we talk about that, just a quick word about the move, Neil, to Celtic in the first place for you. I know you were playing under Martin O'Neill at Leicester. You are a Celtic fan. So was it a no-brainer when he went to Parkhead that you'd follow him there?
Yeah, well, it took a few months to, come to fruition. I spoke to Martin about it in the summer of 2000. He told me he'd been approached by Celtic and, would I be interested in going up there with him? And I said, obviously I would, because, with 4 great years at Leicester in the Premier League and, been to Wembley a few times in the League Cup, but sort of ran its course at Leicester. And with him leaving, it would have left a massive hole, and he got the best out of me. So, yeah, it was pretty much an easy decision from my point of view in terms of, where I wanted to take my career next. And obviously that was still working with Martin.
And Chris, I guess in your case, it was probably maybe not quite a straightforward decision. I mean, having played successfully with Blackburn and then moving into a big club like Chelsea, when the
Blackburn's a big club as well. We won the Premier League. I don't know whether you realise that.
Oh, I remember it well. Yeah. But
you'd upset the Blackburn fans there.
The move to Celtic, though, for you, was it a tough decision to make? I know wasn't Middlesbrough who were going well at the time. They were in for you as well.
Yeah, and Spurs, but I mean, you can say it. It's fine. I had an absolute shocker at Chelsea, and when I met Martin, of course, it was a big deal. Martin going north of the border, because he was, I think, the most sought after manager around at that particular time. I think Leeds United, from memory, wanted Martin to go there, and then I was a laughing stock in London at Chelsea. I'd gone for big money. I didn't score many goals, and I could have gone to Spurs, but I wanted to get out of London. Then I had the option of going to Middlesbrough. Brian Robson was a good manager at that particular time, and they were playing some attractive football. But the chance to play with Hamilton Ricard or Henrik Larsson wasn't too tough a decision, really. And my deal was done quickly, unlike Neil's, which took months because of his wage demands. My deal was done pretty quickly.
Mind you, you were, I mean, the record signing at the time, £6 million, which was a lot of money.
Devalued $4 million, though, in a season. So whichever way you want to look at it, but it was still a record signing for Scotland.
Yeah. Actually, just a very quick word about I know we're going slightly on a tangent here, but what happened at Chelsea where it didn't quite happen for you there, having had such success at Blackburn?
I lost a bit of confidence. I think I missed, chances on my debut. I think I let things affect me a little bit for the first time in my career. I'd had a career before Blackburn as well at Norwich City. And, we had a successful team there. That was the era where we beat Bayern Munich in European competition, finished 3rd in the Premier League, moved on to Blackburn, and everything had been, or my career really had been on an upward trajectory up until Chelsea. Chelsea hit me hard. I signed a 6-year deal at Chelsea, and I thought things would work out there. Ultimately, as a striker, you're judged on your on the goals you score, and I didn't score many. So that's what happened in a nutshell. And I like the manager, Gianluca Vialli, but I felt I let him down. And you know, in the end, however it worked out well, because I ended up at Celtic and I had the best 5 years of my career at Celtic under Martin.
Yeah, I'm just again going on a bit of a tangent, but that game between Norwich and Bayern Munich, was it Neil Goss who scored that volley from
Jeremy Goss?
Jeremy Goss.
I don't know whether you're getting mixed up with Bros there.
Yeah.
with Bros, but I don't think there was a Neil Goss. Maybe it was a cousin. I don't know, but Jeremy Goss.
What a volley that was! Yeah, brilliant goal. Great night for Norwich. But of course, the prospect of great European nights at Celtic was something that was very special as well. And I suppose, Neil, when you go to a place like Celtic, the I don't want to call it the cloud, but the memory of the Lisbon Lions in '67 and the first British club to win the European Cup, still prevalent, I presume, when you walk through the doors there.
Yeah, it's still prevalent now. You know, in 2022, you know, they were such a iconic team, and obviously the first, you know, British club to win the European Cup, and did so much success. And they were an amazing bunch of men, you know, characters in their own right. Unfortunately, there's not many of them left now. You know, we lost Bertie Auld there just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, John Clark was a kit man. He was part of the team, so he would regale some of the stories, Martin and John Robertson, about, you know, they won obviously the European Cup before us as well. So yeah, there was plenty of tradition and history around the club. What we didn't know, Con, was how good the atmosphere was going to be on the European nights, because Celtic hadn't, you know, qualified for the Champions League before until we did it, you know, against Ajax.
Yeah.
And then to experience the atmosphere, you know, under the lights with the Champions League music. You know, our home record in the Champions League certainly over the 5 or 6 years under Martin was quite incredible, really.
Yeah, that seems to be a real feature. You know, going through the results down through the years in both the Champions League and the UEFA Cup, Neil, the home form is incredible. The away form, much more disappointing. And does it point to the influence that the crowd at Parkhead would have on a European night?
Well, I certainly think it motivated us and made us, you know, it just makes you play that little bit harder, stronger, better. You know, it's really difficult to put your finger on why our away form was, you know, so indifferent, because of the quality of players that we had. You know, we blew teams away at Celtic Park, and then 2 weeks later, you know, we'd be, you know, in the corresponding fixture, we'd be beaten, or, you know, not play anywhere near the level that we know we can. So there's no doubt that our home form was really important in the Champions League. However, our very first away game in the competition, we played brilliantly in Juventus and basically got robbed by a really poor refereeing decision. And I don't know if that sort of set the tone for the away games in the Champions League from then on, but it was certainly, you know, a sore one, because we played so well, particularly in the second half that night.
Yeah, this is the 01-02 Champions League campaign. You'd won the treble domestically, so you go into Europe, you get that great result against Ajax in the qualifying round to get through to the group phase. And then you lose away to Juventus, away to Porto and Rosenborg. But that first game, Chris, here's a test now of your memory. We are going back. This is 20 years ago now. Neil was talking about that 3-2 defeat away to Juventus. Do you remember that you had a chance late on in that game? Buffon made a great save to keep it at 3-2. I only remember it because I saw the video, but do you remember events like that so long ago? I would forgive you if you don't, by the way.
What was that? Was that a header?
From close range, yeah. Yeah,
I thought it was quite a long way out when I headed it, actually. I thought that was in the first half. And the second, because we got the penalty in the second half, and Larsson slotted the penalty, and then there was I think it was Amoruso, off the top of my head, went down under wasn't even a challenge from Jos Valhaeren, and then I think Martin O'Neill lost the plot after, quite rightly. But just taking us back a little bit, you know, I think that, you know, Martin, you know, we spoke about the impact he had on myself and Neil that first season, which Martin had. I think that that momentum was growing in confidence. We won the treble. We had the 6-2 demolition derby. We then lost to Ibrox 5-1, I think, in November. And Neil came in, I think it was December, Neil, when Neil arrived, or early January. And Neil was an important signing in terms of taking the club forward to win the title, win the treble. Then next season, the Ajax game was a big game because the first season, I think we got knocked out of Europe by Bordeaux, which was a bit of a disappointment. I think a lot of people forget that. But that Ajax game was pivotal. The first leg away from home, a good Ajax team. I think Van der Vaart was playing for them, Chivu, Avaladze. We beat them 3-1. We actually made a mess of the home game. We lost that 1-0. But going through against a good Ajax team gave us plenty of confidence. But it was a team who had grown within that previous season under Martin, had the treble. And we felt on a day we could beat anybody. But that Ajax game, so important. And then Juventus, albeit we lost the game. We were most certainly robbed. I think that game gave us confidence. They had the likes of Trezeguet, Del Piero, Buffon, Edgar Davids. And, these were household names across Europe. And, we were the better team on the night. And we're unfortunate, not to get a result in that game. But when you think about that, those two, or the ties, Ajax, Juventus, they were, that was a foundation for us, albeit we lost that Juventus game.
And as you say, you were unlucky to lose it. After that then, Neil, home games against Porto and Rosenborg, you won both of them. So suddenly you were on a roll, 2 wins back to back, and things were looking good before away defeats to Porto and Rosenborg. But even going into the last game against Juve back at Parkhead, you still had a chance of progressing if you had beaten Juve and Porto had tripped up against Rosenborg at home, Porto in Portugal.
Yeah, that's right. If you think about it, Colin, we finished the group on 9 points and still didn't qualify.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of teams have qualified with 8 points or maybe even 7. So, yeah, the Juventus night, so he scored an unbelievable volley that night. It was an incredible game of football. Trezeguet came on at half-time and scored 2. He was a real pain in our side, but he was a world-class striker. He was one of the best in the world at the time. It was a carnival of football that night. It was one of the iconic games that I remember, certainly from the time playing. The game ended up 4-3. And, you're coming off the pitch thinking, wow, what game that was. And then you get the news that, Porto had qualified, and, it sort of put a real dampener on the proceeds. And again, the ironic thing about the Ajax game is we played brilliantly away, poorly at home. And yet when it came to the group stages, we were the total opposite. We were unbeatable at home and just couldn't pick up a point away from home for whatever reason. We were well beaten in Porto 3-0. And then, so I don't know if you remember Rosenborg, but it was, like November, December time, it was snowing. It's actually, the place is called Hell in Norway, where Rosenborg played, and it felt like that. We got beat 2-0, brought back, came back to haunt us that night, scored 2. And we didn't play well at all, but we still give ourselves a fighting chance to go through in the last game. But that was one that got away from us that year, no question.
Yeah. Do you that game against Juventus at Parkhead, Chris? You scored twice, and Neil referenced the second goal. Maybe the best goal you ever scored in Europe.
Well, there were so many, Con. We haven't got long enough on this show to discuss them all. Yeah, probably. The fact it was a left-footed a volley. I could talk about this for hours if you want, but no, it was. I thought on the night. I mean, they were a good Juventus team. They went ahead with a brilliant Del Piero free kick, but that pretty much summed the team up at that particular time in terms of character, the players which we had, and you talk about the home support all throughout the years. I think myself and Neil were at Celtic in the big nights. They're the games which stand out, and it was a strong Juventus team, and it was disappointing, as Neil said quite rightly, to go in the dressing room afterwards and think that we'd given so much, but we'd ended up going out of the Champions League. But it was, the away form all throughout my time at Celtic was our Achilles heel. And, it's difficult to put your finger on why that was. How could you perform so well at home? But I think we just felt extra confidence at home. I think we made, basic individual errors away from home. I think second season or third season, Anderlecht especially, when I think Anderlecht went down to 10 men, we ended up losing 1-0. And that was a bitter pill to swallow, that, because, we made a mess of a number of away games, but the home form, you still look back at that particular era under Martin, and that, I think most people look back with great pride. Now, I think that the support going to the games, once we started on a roll at home, they grew in confidence and strength, and it did feel like a cauldron, going out to the Champions League music. And I think genuinely big sides across Europe feared us.
Yeah. That season, 01-02, you did finish third in the group. So you dropped to the UEFA Cup and went out in the next round against Valencia. Again, a good Valencia team managed by Rafa Benitez, and albeit it went to a penalty shootout.
I don't think he played in the first leg, Sutton, in the Mestalla. Valencia won the league that year under Benitez. I think they actually went on to win the UEFA Cup as well. Yeah. They're a great side, and we held on in the Mestalla. Rob Douglas played particularly well. We lost the game 1-0, and then we took it back to Celtic Park and we played wonderfully. We should have went through really over the piece. I think Henrik scored, make the tie 1 each, went into extra time. The atmosphere was unbelievable. And we ended up going out on penalties, which was a real sickness. It was a tough draw, but we matched them, over the 2 games really well. And when you think about the team that they had, it was pretty strong. I can't off the top of my head think of the 2 midfielders that played for them in midfield, but there were 2 Spanish internationals. John Carew was up front for them at the time, and the goalkeeper with the bleach blonde hair, can't remember Canizares, I think his name.
Yeah.
He was a top goalkeeper as well. Really good players at the back. So they're a strong, fit, athletic, quality side. And we matched them, and the atmosphere that night was one of the best. We came out for extra time, and the fans were still singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." So they all stood up with the scarves in the air, and the game's going on. We're like 5-6 minutes into the first period of extra time, and they wouldn't sit down until they finished singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." So again, I'd sort of forgotten about that night, up until I didn't realise it was that season. That was a pretty special occasion as well. But again, tinged with disappointment. It was funny. Joshua Harren went up and he missed the first penalty, but the referee made him take it again. Do you remember, Silly?
Yeah.
I don't know if the goalie moved or something like that, and he missed the second one, and he asked the referee, could he take it again?
No third time lucky, no.
No, absolutely not.
And I mean, you talk about the crowd there, and we mentioned earlier on the impact they have on Celtic for their home nights in Europe. As an outsider looking in, it almost makes the hair stand on the back of your neck. As a player walking out the tunnel, Chris, to that kind of cauldron, it must be quite incredible.
Yeah, it is. But what gives you the confidence is actually when you're standing in the tunnel and you're looking behind at your team, the players which you have on your team, and knowing that they are extremely capable players, and if we all perform well, then we'll have the chance. Then you use the crowd to inspire you. Now, whatever anybody says, Celtic Park is a wonderful place to play when things are going well, but it's a very, very difficult place to play if things aren't going so well, and the fans, get on your back because the expectation is so high. And I think we forget that back then, financially, Celtic couldn't compete with a lot of these top teams around Europe, and that's always been an issue at Celtic. Scottish clubs don't have the money, and yet there's still an expectation when Celtic were drawing the big clubs as we were back then in the Champions League. Your Juventus, your Barcelonas, your Bayern Munichs, your Portos. There's an expectation that we need to compete and be at that level, and that's pressure. But when you look at the side which we had, good experienced footballers who had grown in confidence, understood each other's game well. When things were down, could sort of hang on in there together. We had a really good side, and I think there was such a big connection between the players and the support back then, and the support understood what team we were. And I think that was, what Martin actually built in terms of character and confidence, and that will to get over the line.
Yeah. And the magic continues to this day in the Champions League. Just a reminder, of course, residents in the Republic of Ireland can watch every Champions League game for free on the Live Score app. If we move on to the season 02-03, guys, and it turned out to be a very special year for Celtic. The Champions League side of things didn't go to plan, going out in the qualifying round to a very good Basel team who went on in the Champions League themselves. But then the UEFA Cup run started, and obviously it ended with the final in Seville against Porto. If we take the Basel qualifier first, going into that, I presume you would have fancied your chances against them, even though they were a good team. Neil?
Yeah, we would have fancied our chances against anyone, but the call is cold. I think they scored very early in the home game. I think they scored after 1 or 2 minutes.
Seconds, I think, wasn't it? Was it 30? They scored inside 30 seconds.
I was going to say it was really early. We ended up winning the game 3-1, but they were a good side, and we knew that we'd have to play well in Basel to get through. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. We lost 2-0, and that was a real sort of hammer blow for us. Having built on, we were hoping to build on the success more. But what we didn't realise was, where the UEFA Cup was going to take us at the time. There was a real low after the game. It took us a couple of weeks to get over it, real hangover around the club. But slowly but surely we started to piece things together again. They were a good side, Basel. They ended up, I think, making the last 16 of the quarterfinals in the same group as Liverpool.
Yeah, they only missed out on the quarterfinals on goal difference, actually. I mean, they were a good team.
The Yakin brothers, didn't they?
The Yakin brothers, yeah. He's now manager of Switzerland, the centre half, and the younger brother was a very talented number 10. But they were very athletic, very quick, strong, well organised team, and they put us out on the away goal. Yeah. So that goal we conceded, in the first minute cost us over the 2 legs.
And despite that, though, I mean, the journey in the UEFA Cup, looking at the fixtures that you had, obviously the first round was an easy 10-1 win against Saduva on
they're good on the day, Con, Saduva.
Well, there were 9 goals worse than you. But then the second round, I mean, of course, it would be Blackburn. And I suppose that was very special for you, Chris.
Yes, it was. Well, there was a bit of needle in the second leg, especially, wasn't there, because of the Graham Souness and Gary Flitcroft, who I played with at Blackburn, the men against boys comment, which was really stupid for both to use that type of language, because we knew we hadn't played well in the home game. In fairness, Blackburn had played us off the park, but they hadn't scored a goal. In typical fashion, Henrik Larsson, nicks a winner for us. And I think they just underestimated us. And I don't know whether it was a Graham Souness because he was, ex-Rangers manager, just trying to stoke the fire. But there was still a second leg to go. And we knew ourselves. I mean, I don't think it was one of those where we sort of pinned up what Graham Souness had said on the dressing room wall at Blackburn. We knew we'd disappointed ourselves with our performance. We could do a lot better. And however well Blackburn played at Celtic Park, we went down there and played better and were by far the best team. Henrik scored earlier, a lovely chip over Brad Friedel, who'd gone down early, and then I scored a header in the second half. But we saw it through comfortably, and they were a good team. Blackburn were, and I had mixed emotions because I had 5 great years at Blackburn, but got to say, it made it all the more sweet for the fact that Graham Souness's comments, he had a massive dollop of egg on his face after that.
Yeah, and I suppose the fact that he was so closely associated with Rangers for Celtic fans, Neil, made it just that little bit sweeter again, just even after what he had been saying. Yeah,
it did. I mean, I can't remember much about the first leg, so I know the chances, but the way people were talking is that we got totally dominated. But I'm not convinced that. I think they had chances in the game, but it wasn't as if it was all one-way traffic.
I think they passed the ball very well, didn't they? And
yeah, but they were a good side.
Well, like, I think in terms of an away performance, you know, it was an assured performance. The bottom line is they didn't score. They end up losing the game. So, you know, if you win the game 2 or 3-0, then they're entitled to say men against boys, whatever. And, you know, they obviously assumed that the second leg was a foregone conclusion. That was never the case. And, you know, as much as I love, you know, Blackburn as a club, they underestimated our team and underestimated maybe Scottish football. But look at our team player for player. You know, the side we had at that particular time, we were a bloody good team. You know, previously we'd performed well in the Champions League. And I thought that they disrespected us a little bit with, you know, with those comments. You know, it wasn't just
definitely did. Like, I mean, they had Colin York playing up front, Damien Duff, you know, the Gary Flitcroft, the boy Thompson, and they were second at the time. They were second in the Premier League.
Yeah,
they'd beaten Arsenal at Highbury, which was a difficult thing to do, you know. And then they were coming up to Celtic Park, full of confidence. And after the game, you know, when the comments came out, it just sort of, we knew we hadn't played well or done ourselves justice, so we were pretty motivated to go down there. And the whole Battle of Britain thing, and as he touched on, the way they looked down on Scottish football. I mean, more or less in every round, even our own press were writing us off, you know, before a ball was even kicked, you know, saying, oh, Blackburn are favourites now, blah, blah, blah. And I have to say, you know, it was one of the most professional performances I was involved in with the team. We were just unbelievably good that night. And I don't think Blackburn had ever seen the amount of support. I mean, it's a little sort of Lancashire town, you know, surrounded by, you know, little terrace houses. There was thousands of fans, couldn't get in. You know, the Celtic fans basically came down and took over the place. So we had the whole away end, and then it was sprinkling of green and white all around the ground. And it felt more like a home game, really. And
most of them were so pissed, though, weren't they?
Well, that's typical of the Celtic fans, isn't it? They thought they were in Burnley. we played great, and it was a great feeling at the end. You know, it was sort of a real statement of intent from us going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, the quality of the Celtic team at that time was borne out in the following rounds. You know, beating Celta Vigo were a good team at that point, beat them in the next round. Stuttgart, you counted for them fairly handily, and then a quarter-final against you know, a good Liverpool team as well.
Yeah, Celta Vigo was important. I think that was the first time that Celtic had been past Christmas for, was it 23 years, something like that? John Hartson's goal. You know, they were a good side, Celta Vigo. And then Stuttgart was a big scalp for us because the first leg, if I remember rightly, no Henrik Larsson. And, you know, whatever you say, with a lot of good players at that particular time, but to miss somebody of Henrik's caliber, but that showed the sort of strength of the side. But of course, you know, we were always going to miss Henrik. And then the Liverpool game, a couple of early goals in the Celtic Park game. And then Bobo Baldi, the stupid idiot, broke my wrist in a I can't remember, that was the semi-final against Rangers. I went up for a header, and Bobo, I called Chris's ball, as you do, and then Bobo didn't listen to me, and he landed on my back. I snapped my wrist, and so I didn't play in the game at Anfield. I remember sitting watching the game on the television, and it was one of those where I'm not saying I fancy Celtic to win the game because Liverpool was so strong, but it didn't surprise me. Absolutely didn't surprise me because the caliber of players Celtic had at that particular time. And Alan Thompson's free kick, he says he meant to hit it under the wall. Not so sure he did, but the Johnny Hartson goal that night will go down as one of the greatest ever European goals for Celtic. That was special, and again, very, very sweet for Scottish football. You know, because it wasn't just Blackburn who Celtic had demolished in European football. It was, you know, Liverpool, an iconic European club. And over the two games, we thoroughly deserved it.
Yeah, and I mean, the point you make of Celtic going past Christmas in Europe for the first time in ages, beating Celta Vigo, I think that was the first time Celtic had ever knocked a Spanish team out in European football. So all the way, there were these little boxes being ticked, and suddenly you find yourself in a semi-final against Boavista of Portugal, and Henrik Larsson did the business in both legs to put you into the final, Neil.
Yeah, the ironic thing about Boavista was probably for the first time, Con, we were favourites. and they were a very difficult team to play against. Very tactical, very defensive. Didn't show a lot of ambition. And it's a semi-final, and these are always fraught with anxiety and pressure. And again, we conceded first. I think it was Jos scored an own goal. So obviously you could feel the tension in the crowd. I can't remember if Henrik missed a penalty that night in that game. But
yeah, he did, I think. Yeah,
we equalised, so we take the game to Boa Vista. The score was 1 each going into the second game, and Boa Vista was preparing for the Euros Cup 2004, so they were doing a lot of work on the stadium.
Yeah,
so half the stadium was closed for renovation.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's only about maybe 8,000 people in this little stadium in Boa Vista for a semi-final of the UEFA Cup, which for us was quite bizarre. We had a sort of small group of fans tucked away in a corner. And again, the game was tight, but Henrik popped up with a moment of magic again. I don't know how he scored the goal. It was one of those sort of dinky finishes that he produced. It was around about 81 minutes. So from 81 minutes to the 94th, those were the longest 13 minutes of my career. But when the whistle went, the feeling that we all had, and the feeling that you were going to a European final with Celtic, was just extraordinary. I still get sort of goosebumps thinking about it now. We were so close as a group of players. We were really tight. Really had a great sort of team ethic, and even away from social scene. We were all really close, and it was like playing with your brothers. Going to a final with a great group of lads. Quality players. It was coming out of the airport. Porto were flying back from Rome. So Boa Vista's in Porto, so all their fans were at the stadium, and all the fans who had been watching us, the Celtic fans, there was about 5,000-6,000 fans at the stadium, and we almost got carried onto the plane. It was just an incredible feeling, and
landing back in Glasgow, Lenny, there were thousands and thousands of Celtic fans at the airport. I mean, it's never forget things like that. I mean, it was.
You touched on it, Scotty, when you broke your wrist, right? Those two Liverpool games were sandwiched, I don't know if you remember, between two Rangers games as well. So it was the League Cup final, then Liverpool, then Rangers in the league, then Liverpool away. So you those 4 games over a 2-week period, Con, it was just incredible. And then when we come back from Boa Vista, we're playing Rangers on the Sunday in a big game at Ibrox. So it was just, big game after big game, pressure games after pressure. The lads just took it, all in their stride. It was incredible.
Yeah. And of course, then you had that final to look forward to in Seville. And I know several people who traveled to Seville without tickets. I mean, it's reported that there were 80,000 Celtic fans in Seville. Obviously, many without tickets for that game. And a kind of bittersweet memory for you, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. You can't get away from the fact that it's a major European final. You've worked so hard to get their really good Porto team. They went on to win the Champions League the following season. And in many ways, we shot ourselves in the foot. Individual errors, I think it's fair to say, cost us. Remember Martin O'Neill before the game, don't let this chance pass you by. And I think, whatever we say, and the memories of going to the game, the sea of green and white, playing in the game, it's a massive disappointment to get so close, and sour a little bit in the way that a lot of the Porto players were play acting, but they were Mourinho side. They were streetwise. They had some outstanding players, you have to say that, and I felt for Henrik really as much as anybody on the night, because he scored, as he often did, two stunning goals. But after the game, it's just sheer disappointment, as flat as any time I can ever remember. In the dressing room, that you'd come so close. And I think it's a big deal as well that you see the fans make the effort to go out there. People see, we're 20 years on, and people still talk about Seville with so much pride. But that would have just been nice to just get over the line. somehow. But it was what it was.
Yeah, Bobo Balde got sent off in extra time, of course, which didn't help the cause. And I wonder now, looking back, and we don't like to kind of pick on anybody or anything, but when you see Rab Douglas coming out for what turned out to be the winning goal for Porto, looking at the video now, I kind of wonder, could he have held it as he slid out? He lost the ball and then fell loose to the Porto fellow who put it in the net.
Yeah, I mean, like, Colin, I've never watched it.
Really?
Never watched it. Vivid memories of it is that they were the better team in the first half, and we were by far the better team in the second half. And when we got it back to 2-2, we all felt at the time that, we had it. The sending off really didn't change the course of the game, because the game was sort of meandering out to a penalty shootout. And maybe on reflection, Rob maybe would probably say himself he probably could have done better with it. But again, there was still a bit of work to do for them to score the goal. And I think the shot got a deflection. Post-Larsson was on the line, and the slight deflection took it away from Mully. So Chris is right. I mean, it's the flattest I've ever felt in my career, because you've gone so far. And we were winners. We were used to winning, So you'd won leagues. I'd won cups in England. We'd won leagues in Scotland, cups. Henrik was at the peak of his powers that night. He was just magnificent. And it's just that feeling of the one that got away. The Bobo sending off was, for me, Henrik got fouled on the edge of the box just immediately before that. The referee that night was Slovakian. He was very, very poor. He was young. He was like, I think, 33, right about the same age as most of us. And the game was too much for him. From our point of view, he was very, very poor. Bobo did, in the end, sort of deserve the second yellow, but it should never have come to that in the fields of play. We should have. Carvalho fouled Henrik on the edge of the box. I remember that vividly, bringing him down. You're thinking, maybe we've got a free kick here, and the next thing we're down to 10 men. So a lot of things were going for us at the time, and then that sort of turned the game in Porto's favour. But like I said, Sutton dropped back into midfield with me, and the game we were comfortable. We weren't under an enormous amount of pressure, but we conceded a poor goal from our point of view.
I can only imagine. You both spoke there about the desolation in the dressing room afterwards, like having come so close. And we spoke earlier on about the history of the club and the Lisbon Lions in '67. You would have been listed among. You are still legends, and you are the greats of Celtic, but. That would have been just such a special moment.
Yeah, you would have been immortalised like the Lions. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, Celtic fans crave the European nights. They crave the success. And, they'd waited a long, long time to get to the final, European final of 70. And then from then on, it was just a graveyard in terms of Europe. So, you're 33 years later on, they're back in a final. And there was far more than 80,000 Celtic fans there, I'll tell you. It was like a massive carnival and celebration of all good things about the club, and they were a credit to fans that night. They were amazing. It's just a real sort of bone of contention with all of us because of the type of people that we are, that we didn't come home with the trophy.
Yeah, well, the fans won a fair play award that night from UEFA as well, which again, it's a kind of a credit to them and to the club, and it was an amazing run. And it sort of carried you forward then into the 03-04 campaign, because you still had to come through qualifying rounds in the Champions League, despite that success the previous year. You did that fairly handily. And then you get into a group stage, and I'm looking at the group: Bayern Munich, Lyon and Anderlecht. Not a tough group, Chris.
Yeah, but I actually think, you talk about the first time when we got into the Champions League group stages, I think sides would have fancied playing Celtic, that particular team. But I think as we'd grown in Europe and got to a UEFA final, showed we were extremely competitive at home, that we weren't a particularly good draw to get. I think teams feared coming to Celtic especially. But I actually felt that we had confidence when we saw the group of getting out of the group. Of course, you'd look at Bayern Munich. Lyon were a very, very good outfit. They had some, talented players who actually went on to do, great things within the game. And an Anderlecht side, Belgian teams have always been pretty decent in European competition. I think Vincent Kompany was in their side, a young Vincent Kompany. they were capable. I mentioned earlier about the defeat away.
Yeah.
That was such a soft defeat, and we missed a trick that night. You know, that was a bitter blow because I think we beat Anderlecht very, very comfortably at home. We competed brilliantly against Bayern Munich. 2 games, I think we went ahead with an Alan Thompson header over in Germany, and then we let it slip again late on. Two Bayern Munich goals. I think Magnus Hedman had his finest moment, and the same thing happened in Lyon. I think we'd got back, we'd beaten Lyon at home. Liam Miller scored a brilliant header. I think I scored a header as well, the 1-2 off a throw with Henrik Larsson, and we'd beaten them comfortably. That away game, I think Magnus Hedman had been beaten from 55 yards from a Juninho shot, and then there was the sort of moment towards the end of the game we'd gotten ourselves level and looked comfortable, and there was a Bobo handball, and you know, we'd gone out again, and that was another tough one to swallow, you know. But once again, we'd shot ourselves in the foot, really, and we you know, individual errors had cost us, and that was a big regret, that campaign, because you know, you look at Anderlecht, you look at Lyon away, and you know, had we got anything out of those games, then we would have qualified. But you know, big regrets, but we showed that we were, you know, more than capable again and competitive in the group.
It was Neil, though, was the case of the away games being your Achilles heel, though. You know, you won at home against Lyon, you beat Anderlecht at home handily, as Chris said, you drew at home to Bayern Munich, and then 3 away defeats was curtains.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris touched on it. You know, we were a better team in Munich. We were a goal up, 75 minutes, and we've conceded 2 late goals.
Yeah.
The Lyon one's the one that really hurts because we were 4 or 5 minutes away from qualifying. Sutton had equalised, and it was 2-2, I think, and Bobo gave a penalty handball away and 5 minutes to go. And I felt, Con, we could have done... for me, that season, we were at our best. I don't know if Chris will agree, but in the league, we had won 26 wins in a row. I think we broke all sorts of records that year. It was Henrik, you know, it was going to be his last season at the club. And we were absolutely flying. We whitewashed Rangers, which meant we beat them in every game, whether it be in the Cup or the 4 league games. And we were, you know, smashing the league by 10, 20 points at the time. We murdered Lyon, who were a good side. They'd won like 7 League Ones in a row. You know, we drew at home with Munich on a really tight game. And we were 3-0 up against Anderlecht, you know, in the first 45 minutes. So we were well capable of competing and playing these teams off the park. We should have gone through. And I always look at the next round. Lyon got Real Sociedad. We would have fancied our chances against them over 2 games. You know, so Munich topped the group, Lyon comes second. I think we were a point off it. It was a killer, you know, and so he touched on it earlier as well. Porto went on to win the Champions League that year. A team we took the extra time in the UEFA Cup final the year before. God knows where we could have gone in that tournament, you know, if it had just seen through the group stage. But again, like individual mistakes, really important mistakes at that level sort of cost us in the group, you know, and they were unnecessary mistakes as well. You know, we conceded really poor goals.
And you think how well we beat Lyon at home. I think, you know, I mean, both the goals were, I think Liam Miller's goal, I might be wrong with this. I probably am wrong. I'm usually wrong. But we had something like 27, 28, however many passes leading up to the goal, something ridiculous anyway. And we were comfortable. It was a, you know, really good Lyon side. When you think, I think they had Malouda, Sidney Govou, the tremendous winger, Ed Mielsen, Diarra, Juninho was a player. The goalkeeper was a French international. They were an excellent outfit, and you know, we gave as good as we got against them. Really gave them a going over at Celtic Park, and then away from home once again. You know, it just silly mistakes really, which you know were avoidable.
Just speaking of the dressing room afterwards, Neil, in a situation like that where you were 5 minutes away from going through, Balde gives away a handball in the box and a penalty, and you go out. Are words exchanged in the dressing room afterwards, or is it an arm around the shoulder, or what happened?
No, there was that night, yeah, definitely. Words exchanged between, well, certainly I did a really keen on a couple of them. I was not happy at all with the goalkeeper, and obviously...
That was every game.
You know, it was you know, I was so angry after the game because we had weathered a bit of a storm that night. Because, like I said, Leon were a good side. So he got us back to 2-2, and you're thinking, mate, we just need to see it out now, and we didn't. You know, we're normally quite tight at the back, but yeah, we were I had a few words with a couple of them afterwards because it was incandescent. But you know, it was a big opportunity, a huge opportunity actually. Colin had gone. And in that group, you know, Sutton touched on Liam scoring against Leon. Then Vincent Company was playing in the first game, 17-year-old at the time, and Alex Ferguson had come to watch him. And Liam played that well that night against Anderlecht. I think he scored that night as well, Sutton.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
He ended up going on a free transfer to Manchester United in the summer, you know, and, you know, we wanted him to stay because he was such a talented player at the time, but I suppose the lure of Man United was too big for him.
Yeah. You mentioned Henrik Larsson was going to be on his way. Were you all aware that this was his last season at that point?
Can't remember.
I don't think we were aware at that particular time.
It was the second half of the season, wasn't it? You know, after Christmas, when started getting a few sort of rumours and rumblings about it, like, you know, but obviously towards the end of the season we became aware of it, like, you know, that he was going to sign for Barcelona on a buzz. That's how good Henrik was. Yeah.
I mentioned of Barcelona, when you dropped into the UEFA Cup after this campaign in 03-04, you beat Barcelona over 2 legs in the fourth round, which was again a notable feather in your cap, and again another indicator of how good this Celtic team actually was.
Yeah, you know, I remember the game away from home, just total resilience, really. Was that, I might be wrong, was that the David Marshall game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rob Douglas had been sent off for something that happened
there was
at
a punch
half-time.
up in the tunnel. That was I didn't play in the first leg, but I was aware of a punch up.
Good job you didn't play in the first game, because you got beaten up in the tunnel at half-time.
Well, I doubt it. We had Bobo, but Bobo just used to hit people in the tunnel indiscriminately anyway. You know, he just, I mean, most weeks he'd lamp someone in the tunnel. So I think that all kicked off because of Bobo. And then there was a couple of sendings off, and was it Alan Thompson goal?
Yeah.
Alan Thompson goal, you know, another unbelievable night, mayhem at Celtic Park. But then, of course, everybody thinks, well, we're out because we've got Barcelona in their own backyard. I think John Kennedy had a strong game, if it's the same game. I'm remembering Marshall made a couple of outstanding saves. But once again, it sort of summed up the team we were, you know, difficult to beat. There was a belief and a resilience, which is so important. And, you know, in many respects, once again, proved everybody wrong, but maybe not. You know, we all had this inner belief that we could achieve, you know, a lot of good things if everything went right. And maybe, you know, we talk about individual errors in, you know, in terms of going out of the Champions League. Maybe we got the breaks that night against Barcelona, but that was one hell of a scout. And I remember walking up the tunnel at the end, and I think Lenny had given Ronaldinho a little send off as well, which I quite enjoyed.
What was that?
Oh, I just give him a bit of verbal going up the stairs. They'd been sort of the behaviour in the first game was outrageous, like, you know.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there was 3 of them on Bobo in the tunnel at half time.
That's not enough.
I mean, the one person you want to pick on, you know, out of our whole team would have been Bobo, like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it kicked off big style in the tunnel that night.
Was that at full time after the game? Yeah.
Sorry?
Was that after the game?
After we got through,
going
up the steps at the new camp and just giving Ronaldinho a bit.
And am I right in the new camp that there's kind of a cage between the two teams? One team is on either side, or is it all mixed together? You sort of like
the sort of steps which are just split by a banister almost. Like,
okay.
I don't know if it's probably changed since then, Conley, because you're going back 17, 18 years ago now. But unbelievable like experience to play in the new camp and get a result. You know, we get a couple of results there over the piece. You know, against the sort of embryonic sort of start of the great Barcelona team we're going to see over the next 5-6 years.
Yeah. Of course, you went out in the quarterfinals to Villarreal, which, having knocked Barcelona out, it must have been a real kick in the ass.
They were a good side, though. They were really good side. They had spent a lot of money. You know, they were backed by a big ceramic company called Post-Larsson. And the likes of Pepe Reina in goal, and Belletti, the right back, who scored the winner for Barca in the Champions League final a few years later. Riquelme, he was a magician.
Yeah.
So the first game was 1 each, I think, at Celtic Park, and then they beat us 2-0 over there. So yeah, it was good. I think they went on to the final that year and got beat by another Spanish team. But yeah, I mean,
Valencia, I think,
I think it was. Yeah, so they may not be a big name as such, but you know, their European record over the next few years was pretty good. I think they got to the semi-final of the Champions League a year or two later. So they're an exceptionally good side.
I'm conscious that I've kept you longer than we had anticipated, but your recollections actually are much better than I expected all these years later. The way you can remember incidents and games is fantastic. And if we go into the 04-05 Champions League campaign, straight into the group stage for you, given your previous couple of seasons, and another tough group, Barcelona, AC Milan, and Shakhtar Donetsk. And this is the post Henrik Larsson era as well. And again, it was really the away form, Chris, that undid you.
Yeah, so you'll have to run through it. So we lost 3-0 to Shakhtar Donetsk. I got concussed in that game and came off at half time, I think. I don't remember too much about that one. What was the?
It was 3-0 away to Shakhtar, 3-1 away to AC Milan.
We're taking the lead. Had we taken the lead or equalised in that game? We stuffed up in that game. That's another.
Yeah, we Big Stan Varga equalised. So, do you remember? San Siro, and it was all us. And then Momo Silla ended up somehow playing left back, and he lost Shevchenko at one stage. He crossed it. And then Zaghi scored, and I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes to go. And then they scored a deflection off a free kick from Pirlo, and we lost the game 3-1. Can't remember what the score was. Was it 0-0?
0-0 at home. I remember the home game.
0-0 at home, and 1-1 away to Barcelona. But in the first game in the campaign, a very rare home defeat, losing 3-1 to Barcelona. Yeah. And of course, Henrik Larsson would score a goal in that match, although his celebration was fairly mooted. And I think, Chris, if the video is to be believed anyway, did you get his jersey at the end of that game?
Yeah. He asked for my jersey, and, as you can imagine.
Oblige.
I mean, it was written in the stars what would happen that particular night. I think I came on at half time and had a hamstring injury, which is outrageous for somebody as slow as me to pick up a hamstring injury. And I think Juninho was in our side. I think I'm right in saying that. And things didn't, for whatever reason, work out at Celtic for him. You know, he's a really talented player that he was, but things didn't click. And I came on at half time, and I think I scored an equaliser that night. Henri Camara, right hand side, crossed the ball in. Wonderful technical finish again with the outside of my right foot.
You just fell into it.
I stumbled and I went into the top corner. That was about right. And then we were in the game. You know, we were well in the game, and this was an outstanding Barcelona team. And it's an Alan Thompson header trying to head the ball back to the goalkeeper. And I mean, you know, Larsson made a career out of reading situations so well. He's on the move. He's the only one in the stadium who's sort of seen what was going to happen, how the header was going to work out, nipped in, scores, and that was a knockout blow from Henrik to do that. Really dirty of him to come back and do that to the team he's spent 7 years at and to a lot of his teammates. But he was a brilliant player, and of course, whatever way we want to look at it, going into European competition that season without Henrik Larsson, it's not the same team. And, as much as we still had good players and we believe, but you're missing your star man, the guy with the X factor. So we still showed that we were competitive, and we were competitive. We were had a lot of good characteristics and could still play. But you miss at that level. You're looking for people to take advantage of small opportunities and as fine margins. The higher level you go, and Henrik was capable of that, and we certainly lack that.
It was sort of the beginning of the end, Conor, that era. Really, we were all sort of the same age, really. Myself, Chris, Henrik, Paul Lambert, Johan, Bobo. We're all Jackie McNamara. We're all sort of mid-30s by that stage. And I remember...
I think I was 28.
No, you weren't. I remember losing 3-0 in Kiev to Shakhtar Donetsk and being really critical of the club afterwards in terms of the lack of support they'd given Martin. We'd lost Henrik and, we hadn't replaced them, really. We brought in Henri Camara on loan, and that's, it's a huge differential in quality. And there was no real sort of... spending in the squad at that stage, maybe. And I remember getting a call from Martin saying, "You better ring Dermot, Mr. Desmond. He's not happy with your comments." So I got a bit of short shrift from Dermot on it at the time, but I was starting to see sort of the team starting to break up, and we were losing quality players and not really replacing them. Now, you're not going to replace Henrik Larsson, or you're not going to replace a Paul Lambert, but younger, hungrier players to come in and sort of augment what we already had. And I think we ended up the campaign on 5 points, but it was sort of like come to the end of an era, really. And I think Martin even felt that himself.
Yeah, it was his last European, and actually the results on the pitch bore out the point that you were making. So I mean, even if Dermot Desmond wasn't thrilled with what you were saying, it was true, And
when you're in the nuts and bolts of it, Colin, when you're around it every day, and when you're putting it in as much as we did, you want to see some sort of return coming back. And maybe the finances have just, the well had run a bit dry because, we spent a lot over the previous 4 years, but when you lose quality players and still to compete at Champions League level, you have to replace them.
Mm-hmm. The next season, 05-06, was your last European campaign with Celtic, Chris, and it was a short one because you went out in the second qualifying round to Artmedia Bratislava.
Well, hang on a minute. Can I stop you there, Con?
Yeah.
I know what's coming here, Con.
Go on.
Believe a word of it.
So the score when I left the game against Artmedia Bratislava was 0-0 because Neil had put his knee through my face and I had a quadruple fracture of the cheek, and in typical Lennon fashion, he was still moaning about pain in his knee a couple of weeks after I'd had a serious operation. Actually ended up finishing my career, his knee in my face. I mean, incredible scenes. And for him to moan about the pain in his knee and getting treatment on that weeks after, I mean, just incredible stuff. But the team, when I went off 0-0, they ended up getting spanked 5-0 by Artmedia Bratislava. That was Gordon Strachan's first game, wasn't it? And then, but the home, I mean, remarkable that the home leg in that Celtic nearly turned that round. But of course, I wasn't part of it.
It's all your fault, Neil.
I remember getting slaughtered on the way onto the coach because the Celtic fans were so angry. They were so angry about the performance and the result. And as the players were getting on the coach, I'd gone to hospital. I'd had an X-ray on my face. My face had caved in. And that was a big blow because I'm quite an attractive man, and so I went back to the stadium, get ready to get on the coach, and all the other lads are getting slaughtered and by the Celtic fans, and I think, well, I'm going to be all right because I was only on for 8 minutes, and they gave me both barrels. The Celtic fans, your legs have gone, big man, and all that sort of stuff, and a few more expletives and that. So yeah, I mean that sort of hurt a little bit, as it wasn't my fault.
Neil.
Yeah, it was my fault.
It was an amazing game, though, wasn't it? I mean,
it was horrendous. We weren't prepared at all, Con. We didn't have a great pre-season. It was like a huge change from Martin leaving and the way he worked, and then Gordon coming in, and he just didn't have time to put his own stamp on things, and you're straight into these sort of qualifiers. The second leg, we won 4-0, and we actually could have got the 5. I think Craig Beattie missed a great chance towards the end to make it 5-0 on the night, and then we could have took it into extra time. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great start for Gordon, but he's certainly made up for it over the next upcoming seasons.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was because the next season, 06-07, Chris had departed, and it was your last season in Europe with Celtic, and an interesting group stage again. Man United, Copenhagen, and Benfica, and again those away defeats were costly.
It's really interesting, Con, because that first group stage under Gordon totally replicated what we did under Martin in the first year. We won 3 home games and lost the 3 away games.
Yeah.
But we qualified this time with 9 points. So that was the point I was making earlier on. In our first year, we had 9 points, and that normally is enough to get you through in second place. 10 points normally gets you the group, and then second place, you could be 8 or 9 points. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen that year. So yeah, I mean, obviously the big one was Man United. We lost the first game at Old Trafford 3-2, played really well. Nakamura scored a free kick, and then obviously going back to the Celtic Park was a great night, but we didn't play well. Man United, as you'd expect, sort of dominated the game, but Nakamura came up with a piece of world-class technique and scored an unbelievable free kick to win us the game. And the story was that after the game, Fergie was in the dressing room and basically going through the players like a hot knife through butter. And then he came to Van der Sar and he went, and as for you, he goes, that little Japanese player next door, we'll be bringing out a DVD soon of his 100 greatest goals, and you're going to be on every clip. So, yeah. So, but that was a great night, to beat Manchester United, again, another Battle of Britain. And then to actually, after all them years, qualify for the last 16 was, incredibly special.
Yeah. And actually, again, we're talking very fine margins. When you got through to the round of 16, it took extra time against Milan before they eventually nicked a goal and put you out.
Yeah, we first game was 0-0, and then it was 0-0 after 90 minutes. We cut out a penalty, handball against Maldini, which, it's difficult to get in the San Siro, and then Kaka scored a great individual goal. I probably, on reflection, should have brought him down. He started the run off, but it was on a yellow card at the time, and there was still like 20-25 minutes to go in the extra time period. So it didn't fail him, but he ended up going on and scoring, and I'm thinking to myself, he should have just took the second yellow. I didn't know he was going to go on and score, obviously. And then went on to win it that year, they beat Liverpool in the final. Yeah. You could see the relief in the players, your Seedorfs, your Kakas, your Gattusos, your Pirlos, they got a lot of belief from beating us that year. Get into the quarterfinals, and obviously went on to win it. They beat Liverpool 2-1 in the final to get their own back from 2005.
And how does it compare the European nights as a player versus your time when you were manager? Is it a different kind of stress when you're the manager?
Yeah, of course it is, because you're the manager, and when you're a player, you look after obviously your teammates, but your own individual performances. When you're the manager, the whole buck stops for you. But it's so exciting, I had 2 spells on Champions League management, and it was incredible. Absolutely so exciting. No pressure. All the pressure's in the qualifying. Then when you get into the group stage, you can really start to enjoy it.
Yeah.
We didn't have the team that I played in. We sort of put the team together for about 10-15 million, and we ended up, getting through with 10 points, which was incredible. We were the first team to win away in the Champions League for Celtic, winning in Spartak Moscow, which was pretty special. And that sort of gave us a lot of confidence to, take on Barcelona over the home and away legs. And obviously that's down in history now as one of the great nights at Celtic as well.
Yeah.
To qualify, and get through the last 16 as a manager was amazing.
And I mean, you're both working now as pundits, and I suppose in a way you can kind of enjoy the football now. When you're a pundit, you can really revel in the occasion without the stress of management or being a player. So I'm going to ask you before we wrap up to put your pundits hats on, because a reminder for residents of the Republic of Ireland, you can watch every Champions League game for free on the Live Score app, and we're at the round of 16 stage. at this point competition. Now, 4 clubs still left from the Premier League in England. If you were to call it at this stage, Chris, I know we're still only at the round of 16, but where would your money be going?
Can I name 3 teams or 4?
Well, that gives you a 25% chance, but you can, yeah.
I think Manchester City, they have to win it one season. I mean, they've made such a mess of so many good situations over the last however many years, losing to, sides would expect them to beat. I think that this has to be their year. I think defensively, Diaz has been an outstanding signing. Laporte's come back into the team this season and they look strong. I mean, the fact of the matter is they still, don't play with a recognised centre forward, but they have so much strength and depth in those forward areas. And this year, I just think it sort of has to be their year. I'm not so sure about Liverpool this season. They always have got such a great front line, but they're sort of leaking goals. And Chelsea, the wheels are falling off a little bit, but I still wouldn't rule them out. Bayern Munich, still think that they are, an incredible team. But at this moment in time, if you're asking me, Con, I'm going to say Manchester City. I'll be proved wrong again.
Well, you never know. It's very hard to. Well, you're the expert, but I just from my point of view, I think City would be my choice as well. Neil,
well, you're just copying me there, aren't you? That's
that's it. Yeah.
Neil will probably say the same.
I like the look of Bayern Munich, Con. I just think
copied me there.
They're so slick. What do you say, sorry?
You copied me there as well. My second pick.
Well, you pick.
If you name enough of them, yeah, he will.
Yeah. Paris Saint-Germain are a bit of a mixed bag, and they're not a team really. They sort of play as individuals more than as a team. And again, it's hard to see past the top 3 English teams. There's stubbornness about me that doesn't want to see Man City win it because he doesn't play with a centre forward. The centre forwards, they're my favourite players. So if he wins the Champions League without a recognised centre forward, the game's a bogey for me. So I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Bayern Munich.
Okay. Well, they play Salzburg in the round of 16, so they'd be fancy to come through that. Anyway, City have a tricky enough round of 16.
Salzburg are a good team, Con.
Yeah, well, they're all good teams at this point, I suppose.
They'll
or most
feel
of them
they
anyway.
can climb
Yeah.
any mountain.
There's a career in comedy for you, Chris, if you don't make it as a pundit. Listen, it's been an absolute joy talking to you. We as I said, we've spoken for a lot longer than I expected to, but your memories of those games, which was a very, very special time for Celtic Football Club, have been really great to hear. And I'm sure the fans will be really thrilled to hear from the two of you as well. So thanks so much for talking to us this afternoon. And here's to better times ahead in the years to come for Celtic as well. Thanks a million, guys.